We'll be on time so we can keep the train rolling. If I'll ask the secretary, please call the roll.
Senator Rocky Adams, Senator Chambers Armstrong, Senator Douglas,
Present.
Senator Elkins,
Present.
Senator Howe, Senator Rawlings,
Yes.
Senator Smith, Senator Storm,
Here.
Senator Yates, Senator Girdler, Chair Carpenter.
Here. We have a quorum. We're ready to do business. Before we get started, I will say that we have some new members to this committee, and a couple of new members actually in the Senate this year. But I think Senator Chambers, she's not here. The Democrats must not have got the memo. We was having a meeting this morning. Nobody got that joke? No. Oh, okay. Oh, sorry. Snowed in. Senator Elkins is now new to the committee. Senator Elkins, we appreciate you being here, and also Senator Rawlings. We appreciate you being here and look forward to you being on the committee this year. So, Senator Girdler, you're the man of the hour. Do you want to go down to the table to present? And I know you have some different guests. We'll start off with Senate Bill 24, if you want to. And I know there is a sub on that one, Senator. So, once you get situated, I'll let you direct traffic here. Make sure that your guests introduce themselves, and I know we do have somebody on Zoom, Mr. Nolan, if we have questions or if there's something that they need to get involved with. But I'll let you guys introduce yourselves and get started.
Thank you, Chairman. Really appreciate your generosity and your friendship. They asked me how come I'm the only one that's got a bill today, and I said, when you know something on the chairman, you can do whatever you want to do. So anyway, today I do have a bill with Mr. Nolan. Hopefully his crew will draw a hat on him afterwards. We have one of the problems we have in the state of Kentucky is when Florida tightened their rules up, all their people came to Kentucky, and we're having fraud issues like crazy, which is causing, along with everything else, which is causing a ton of problems and ton of premiums to go up. So basically, this is a fraud bill that we've worked on. I think we've got a committee sub.
We got a committee sub. We've got to do a motion on the committee sub.
You'd like to have a motion?
On the committee sub in a second. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Any opposed?
All right. I'm going to briefly turn it over to my driver, Mr. Nolan, and he is big in the insurance industry, and I respect him very much. So, and this is coming from perspective of what we need to do about the fraud.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Chris Nolan with the Insurance Institute of Kentucky, and online virtually with us today is Eric DeCampos with the National Insurance Crime Bureau, and we appreciate the opportunity to discuss insurance fraud this morning with this legislation. As many of you already know, property and casualty insurance fraud is not a victimless crime. It's estimated that the cost to a single family each year is between $400 and $700 in increased premiums due to insurance fraud. And here in Kentucky, we're all too familiar with all the storms and catastrophes that have become very common to your constituents and your neighbors in recent years. In addition to the tragedy and devastation these storms cause, these events provide unscrupulous people with the opportunity to commit insurance fraud and prey upon already vulnerable consumers. What we've seen in recent years is unscrupulous contractors and public adjusters charging unnecessary, exorbitant, or fraudulent fees to inflate an insurance claim. I do want to be clear, though, that the vast majority of contractors and adjusters that we see do a great job and provide essential services to rebuild in times of devastation, and that there are only a handful of bad actors. But oftentimes, out-of-state entities flood into the state during these disasters with the specific purpose of scamming or abusing consumers. Senate Bill 24 will help combat insurance fraud by expanding the definition of insurance, a fraudulent insurance act, to expand it to say that any statement that misrepresents the scope of the property damages and repair costs associated with a claim is a fraudulent act. So expanding this definition will provide law enforcement and regulators with additional tools to investigate and prosecute insurance fraud. The committee sub that was adopted that you have before you simply made one sentence change, working with the trial bar. They wanted to make sure that it was very tight in the definition of an inflated bill, and so we made that change in working with them. And Mr. DeCampos is online if you would like to. I know he sent some information to the committee as well. Eric?
Thank you, Mr. Nolan. Again, my name is Eric DeCampos, and I represent the National Insurance Crime Bureau. NICB strongly supports Senate Bill 24. I'm not going to rehash everything that Mr. Nolan had just said and he put together so eloquently, but I do want to emphasize that this bill will provide law enforcement with additional tools to investigate insurance fraud, while also closing some loopholes in state laws that are being exploited by fraudsters, specifically those few bad actors and an otherwise good bunch. And so accordingly, we respectfully urge the committee to support Senate Bill 24. And very quickly, I just wish to thank you, Mr. Chairman, and the committee for the opportunity and the ability to testify remotely today. And I'm also happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Senator Girdler, did you have another?
Well, I was going to say the thing that will probably interest Senator Yates and my good friend back here. Bodily injury, is not part of, if we come at difference of value, if Senator Yates asks for $1 million and the company pays me $50,000 to me.
To me.
That might be fraud because somebody will know who I am. Anyway, we're not dealing with bodily injury. We're just dealing with the property and casualty side of it. So it's not a difference of opinion of soft tissue injury or whatever.
Right, and mostly with storm damage, people come in and catch people in a position where there's a tree down that should cost $6,000 to take down. Somebody turns in a bill for $45,000, and then you're in a position where people are just taking advantage of situations, and that's not what we're here for. So, do we have another attorney has a question? Senator Storm.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a question. Is this an issue that Commonwealth attorneys across the Commonwealth are not prosecuting insurance fraud, or because if that's the case, can you show me a Commonwealth attorney in Kentucky that's not doing their job as it relates to insurance fraud enforcement?
Thank you for the question, Senator. No, I think they are doing a very good job. The Department of Insurance, I should back up and say we have an insurance fraud task force that meets quarterly, and there's anywhere from 20 to 40 people that participate in those meetings, and it includes both investigators from the Department of Insurance that routinely updates us on the millions of dollars they recover from fraud that occurs, and the number, I believe it's in the thousands of investigations that they've done over the years for insurance fraud, and then working to prosecute those. And of late, the Department of Insurance has been referring cases over to the Attorney General for prosecution as well. So there's been a lot of activity that is occurring, and a lot of it does happen in areas that have the disasters, and then urban areas is where most of that fraud, because of the dense population, is occurring.
And I might add this puts a little more teeth into it. Mm-hmm. And you don't have to read into it to the point of guessing or anything else with it. And you have to prosecute these people. You have to. If you don't prosecute them, we're in trouble.
That's my point.
Yeah.
But the language, I think, in the bill kind of gives some more meaning to make sure that the scope of the bill is within line of what is correct, and they just can't say, well, it's because the danger of taking something down or improving something. I would assume, isn't that correct? Why we're here doing this?
Yes.
Yeah. Senator Storm, did that answer your question? Yes, sir. Any other questions? Oh, I'm sorry, Senator Howe.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a follow-up on that, and if you answered that, I just didn't follow it. So it's my understanding that some Commonwealth's attorneys are prosecuting this, and then also the Attorney General's office as well are prosecuting this?
Yes, and I would defer to Mr. DeCampos if he'd like to make a comment here. He tracks this nationally.
Before you do, Mr. Campos, I want to get to my real question for you. A lot of my Commonwealth's attorneys in my district are pretty strapped for resources, and I can see this just being more than they can handle. And I just wondered where the discussion was of making this more of an Attorney General approach rather than the local Commonwealth's attorneys. We do this for other things that are so specialized that there's just no way that our local Commonwealth attorneys in their offices can handle the load. I didn't know where we were on that discussion.
A very active discussion on that. That's kind of one of the issues that the Insurance Fraud Task Force has been dealing with for years. At one point, we met with the Jefferson County attorney to talk about how we can collaborate more, how investigators can work more, because you're right, their workload is pretty filled. And we're talking about property crimes, not crimes against violent crimes, so to speak. So working with the Attorney General's office and trying to do more with them as a way to get more of these cases picked up and prosecuted is absolutely what we're working on. And this will be a tool to allow the Department of Insurance to be able to go after just that part of inflated billing, which is something we've seen recently develop, and the investigators saying we can't do much with it because there's no statutory authority if somebody just inflates a bill randomly.
So this could streamline the ability for Commonwealth attorneys to take this on as well as the AG's office.
Mr. DeCampos, I don't know if there's anything you'd like to add.
I think that answers my question, but thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir. Senator Yates, I mean, after this, I'm going to open it up to see if there's any other non-attorneys that have a question, but Senator Yates.
Well, first of all, I appreciate your willingness to work with this bill to make sure that it's narrowly tailored and actually goes to making sure that actually someone has criminal intent as opposed to being open-ended where it could be potential areas of, sometimes just basic negligence or other issues. There's a different level there. In my experience, I started off at the AG's office a long time ago and did some consumer protection litigation, but some of these cases the AG's office did go after, but on larger scales, when there was fraud. In my experience, a lot of your Commonwealth attorneys and even county attorneys' office, they stay away from it because they argue it's more of a civil issue to go back and forth. So I think that even if it winds up being a civil issue, because if you have a per se liability, it makes it a little bit stronger and hopefully can get rid of some of the bad actors. So because of the changes and the willingness to make sure it's nearly tailored to someone who is a criminal, I'd be supportive. So thank you.
I appreciate I'm not an attorney, but I do pay a lot of insurance. And so like this year, my insurance on my apartment complexes has went up. They tried to go up like $30,000 on me. Yeah. And so I ended up raising my premium to, up $10,000 to keep my keep it to where my deductible $10,000 to kind of keep it to where it's affordable for me to even have insurance on them. And the reason for that is because of all this loss that we're seeing, and a lot of it's devastation we can't do anything about. But whenever people are taking advantage of costs when they're going in and bidding these things or charging the insurance companies, then we all as consumers are having to pay for that. And so that's kind of what this is about, is not really protecting the insurance company, it's helping protect the consumers to where they can afford to be able to keep insurance on their property. We, if we're not careful, we'll end up like Florida and these places where insurance costs have got so radically high that you really can't afford to have some of these properties insured. And so hopefully that can help alleviate some of those problems to where we can afford to do that. So if there's no other questions, I'll ask for a motion on the bill of adopt with the committee sub that it was adopted. Have a motion and a second. Ask Secretary, please call the roll.
Senator Rocky Adams. Aye. Senator Chambers Armstrong. Senator Douglas.
Aye.
Senator Elkins.
Aye.
Senator Girdler.
Aye.
Senator Howe. Senator Rawlings. Senator Smith. Senator Storm.
Aye.
Senator Yates. Chair Carpenter.
Aye. Senator Howe also just walked back in the room, and he'd like to vote aye as well. The bill does pass with favorable expression. Senator Girdler, we appreciate it. Chris, appreciate you. And we also appreciate you testifying via Zoom. We know that you had a new addition, and we wish you the best on that. And congratulations on the new baby.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We also, Rick, we also have the title amendment. We need to adopt the title amendment. So do I have a motion on the title amendment?
Motion.
And a second? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The title amendment is adopted.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right. That's why I've got to have 2 or 3 around me to make sure I stay in line. I appreciate you. All right. Senate Bill 18, also Senator Girdler. You've got some more guests.
Yes, I do.
You've got an entourage with you today, Senator Girdler.
I've got a UK. His number's going to be up there. We just can't find what number he was.
Yeah. Well, he's secret. He is a secret assassin is what they called him, I believe.
Then I've got a dear friend of, I grew up with his father-in-law, and he's an insurance man in Pulaski County, and
All right. I'll ask them to say their name for the record, and we look forward to hearing the testimony on Senate Bill 18.
Yeah, I'm Adam Sheridan with Reed Brothers Insurance Services out of Somerset.
Dustin Miller, retained legislative agent for Big Eye, Kentucky.
this Senate Bill 18 is basically going to, brought to me by Adam, and as you will be able to tell, he's a very bright individual and a young man, got in the insurance business 10 years ago?
12 years ago now.
12 years ago, all right. And so he brought this to me through Dustin, and it's all about automobile dealers insurance. So I'm going to let him speak and tell you what the problems he's had, and then we can go from there.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. So over my 10, 12 years in insurance, when I first started out, I couldn't count how many insurance companies offered. Primarily what we're looking at here is garage liability insurance, which is what they have to provide to the state in order to either obtain or renew their dealer license. When I started, like I said, there were more insurance companies than I could count. Now I tell people when I meet with them, I can count on one hand how many insurance companies offer this coverage in the state of Kentucky. And even then, they have their own underwriting restrictions and underwriting guidelines. So sometimes there's one or two options, and what we're starting to see more and more of is zero options. Spoke with former Representative Bart Rowland, who was on the House Banking and Insurance Committee, and he had two used auto dealers come to his office last month that he could not find coverage for. And those folks are left with the option of essentially closing down their business if they can't find coverage. I mean, most of these, as of last month, there were over 2,500 dealer licenses issued in the state of Kentucky. And most of these are your small mom and pops that are sponsoring your little leagues, that are sponsoring fall festivals at elementary schools, that are giving back to the community, but they have to have this garage liability insurance in order to operate and have their dealer license in the state. So what the goal of this bill does essentially is allow non-admitted insurance companies to provide coverage in the state. Most of these are companies that are already providing coverage on other lines of business. They're just not permitted to provide garage liability insurance in Kentucky.
Explain to us real quick, for those that don't know, what garage liability is. Basically, whenever the gap in between when somebody's just explain it in your words.
Garage liability, for the most part, think of it as like a commercial auto insurance. So it protects them or protects their employees that are driving the vehicles, test driving them after they work on your vehicle, or if you go test drive a vehicle you want to purchase, their garage liability insurance is your car insurance essentially when you're test driving that vehicle, something like that.
Yeah, I just want to clarify that because I didn't know if everybody knew exactly what we're talking about here.
Sure.
And the big guys, they don't have that problem. You know, the major car dealerships, it's the smaller ones that would,
for the most part,
have
right,
the bigger
right.
issues. All right. Dustin, was there anything you wanted to add, or are you just there for looks today? Moral support?
Well, I always like to have a UK basketball player with me.
You gotta love it, Dustin. You know it, huh? I have to sit with this guy on the floor also. You realize that, right? Senator Yates.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And Dustin, I appreciate you explained a little bit, but looking through, and I think it sounds like it may make things less expensive as well, provide additional competition, and I always like that. I wish we did even more of that with health insurance, other insurance companies, just kind of really open it up for competition. Is that kind of our understanding? I know that if you have the local people here that can't provide coverage, garage coverage, unless it's an astronomical price, but you're able to go outside, would they still have the same type of rules and protections and oversight and accountability that the other insurance companies would be providing?
So, Mr. Chairman, if I might, I'm going to take your second one. I'm asking Adam to talk about price. He's in the market every day and knows more about what's out there. So non-admitted carriers have been in Kentucky since 1970. As Adam said, they're surplus lines carriers is often what you'll hear them called. They're providing coverage to people all the time. Sometimes that's tailored risk. Think Lloyd's of London maybe, right, as an example. Very tailored, specific risk. They do a lot of that. So as an example, been around for a long time. And Kentucky's allowed that. But they are not regulated at the Department of Insurance. So yes, there are questions about solvency and those kind of things. And that's why the role of the agent, the broker in that transaction is really important. They are advising their clients, hey, I've seen their books, this company is good, and that's the recommendation they're making, the value that the agent plays in that transaction. But ultimately, they are not regulated. They're at arm's length sort of from the department. They do register at the department. They pay taxes here on the business that they write. But but relative to those specific consumer protections, that's part of the allure of those is how they're able to design innovative or specific solutions. Adam, I'll let you address the affordability question.
As you mentioned too, it's like health insurance. If you only have one option, the price is the price. But the more companies you have that are willing to offer the coverage, the more competition, the better rates overall you're more likely to encounter.
And so that would go through the agent on this one, because obviously we would make this requirement. The reason we make this requirement is to protect the people of the Commonwealth of Kentucky.
Right.
We want to make sure that if my wife and children drive on the road and then a car gets hit, that it's insured.
Right.
But we want to make sure that it's insured by someone who is not insolvent.
Right.
Otherwise, it defeats the whole purpose. So I would think that if it goes through the agent, then this place winds up being solvent, would the attorney be able to sue the agent for the malpractice, for failure to be able to check and cover that? Because I got to make sure that if I got a family of 4 that's killed on the road, and it turns out that the insurance company's insolvent, I got to make sure that they're protected.
Right.
So if we're going out and because I could open up an insurance company and call it, Buck with a Truck Insurance Company and charge you really cheap rates and everything, but whenever they go to submit the claim to me, I just bankrupt. Well, then what happens to that family? And so I just want to make sure that my people are protected in some way. And so I guess what you're telling me, that buck stops with the agent, because you're saying the agent takes on the responsibility of that investigation, look at the books and make that right, and the agent would keep malpractice coverage for that?
Right. I mean, it's
Errors and omissions coverage.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
yeah.
I just want to
Sure.
make sure that they're covered,
Yeah.
because that's our whole purpose, right, of having mandatory insurance to make
Right.
sure that people are safe in Kentucky.
Right.
Okay. Thank you for answering that.
Welcome.
Thank you. Do I see any other questions or comments or concerns? Understanding, and Senator Girdler had actually brought this bill to me and had conversation with me, and Dustin spent some time in the office explaining some of the reasons and issues with it as well. So I got pretty familiar with it. So if we don't see any questions or concerns, do I have a motion on the bill? Have a motion and a second. Secretary, please call the roll.
Senator Rocky Adams. Aye. Senator Chambers Armstrong. Senator Douglas.
Aye.
Senator Elkins.
Aye.
Senator Girdler.
Aye.
Senator Howe. Senator Rawlings. Senator Smith. Senator Storm.
Explain my yes vote.
Please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Since Senator Girdler did not know his number, it's number 52, and he went 7 for 7 in a game, so I vote aye.
Aye. Good, good.
Senator Yates.
Yes vote. Based on the testimony today that there will be coverage for people, that was my only concern, and I really appreciate Senator Girdler and also number 52 for explaining it to us today.
Chairman Carpenter.
Aye. I don't think 52 is a real number if you get that high, unless it's football. I'm not for sure. So
That was an old wrinkle one back in the back.
Speaks volumes.
Senator Girdler, the bill does pass with favorable expression, so we'll see Senate Bill 18 as it moves through the process. You've done 2 for 2 today. You've really done well.
That's better than I ever did in basketball. I can promise you that.
Is there any other questions or comments? This is our first Banking and Insurance Committee. We're moving along pretty well in the session already. So 2 bills out. Until we have more to come, I have a motion for adjournment. We're adjourned.